So I loaded up my truck and headed up north, and it was just an absolutely beautiful day. End of August, temperatures in the 80s. I went out where our cottage used to be, and it was still such a beautiful day. I thought I'd keep going farther north up to Leland. And I see there's people out playing in the waves there. There's people everywhere. It was a busy, beautiful Saturday. So I thought I'm just going to go out and wait a little bit, let the waves splash on me. I'm finally feeling refreshed. And after a while, I realized I'm not just up to my waist with the waves crashing on me, it's up to my chest. And then pretty soon it's almost up to my neck. And then all of a sudden I'm treading water. I thought, all right, I know what this is. But the waves were really big by the time I got carried out into the lake, and just pounding me. I got into this rhythm where I'm getting knocked down, hold my breath, come back up, make sure I'm not coming up in another wave. But then I came to this realization that this is how I'm going to die.
When you're going to go swim in the Great Lakes, you should be prepared to be in a situation you're unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with. You should be prepared to deal with panic or cold water or waves that you've never been in before. Though all those unknowns are part of the fun, it's part of the adventure. And when you know how to deal with panic and you know how to deal with unknown problems, it's a great time.
We've kept track since 2010, pretty good numbers, and now we're in March of 2018, so in a little over 7.5 years, there's been 631 fatal drownings on the 5 Great Lakes.
I like to call 2012 my country song year, because my dog done died, I dang near drowned, and my woman done left me.
Nobody goes in the water with the intention of having a terrible thing happen to them.
I think greater knowledge for parents and for the community with regards to swimming and water safety is imperative.
Well, so after Matt drowned, I was Googling on the internet, and I did find some resources, and one of them was actually on Facebook. It's the Drowning Support Network, and that's actually where I met Melissa Zirkle.
My name is Melissa Zirkle. My son was caught in a structural current, and even then I didn't know what it was. My son's accident happened 2 weeks before his 14th birthday in July. I looked out, I turned my back and I looked to check on Jermaine, and I could see him in the water. He was by the barge and he was only waist deep. I had a rule for my kids their whole life. They don't go in the water over their waist. When the waves were high, I always felt like that was safe for them. And at that point, they could just walk back to shore if anything were to happen. So when I saw him waist deep, I could see the top of his shorts. He wasn't very deep, and he was laughing and having fun. And about 3 minutes later, I heard cries for help, and that's when my son was gone.
Matt was our only child. He was our son. Matt was God's gift to us. He was a great kid. He was 15 when he drowned in Lake Michigan.
His freshman year in high school, he played football, basketball, and volleyball. And Matt enjoyed doing community service.
He was always looking out for the other person and willing to lend a helping hand whenever he could.
When Matt had his drowning accident, he was at the beach in New Buffalo. He was taken by ambulance to St. Anthony's Hospital in Indiana. After Matt passed, we did learn that he had been caught in a rip current and that it was a rip current warning day and that there was a red flag on the beach. But the thing is that we didn't know about rip currents. Matt didn't know about rip currents. None of his friends knew about rip currents. We don't live that far from Lake Michigan, yet we are not educated about the dangerous water conditions.
I started to spend time in Lake Michigan when I moved here, and then my sister bought a house in Beverly Shores, Indiana, and right in front of this beautiful beach. In June of 2012, I spent a warm day in the afternoon with my boyfriend at the time, Leonel Dominguez. He was from New York. He was 32 years old. He was a very strong swimmer. It was a beautiful sunny day, 95 degrees, but didn't realize that they were offshore winds that had started after we got there. And so it turns out that even though the water was a little bit cold generally, when we got caught in the water too long, we were far out and we realized that the temperature underneath was a lot colder. We were sitting on the raft looking at each other, throwing water at each other, and in a couple of minutes, it felt like maybe 5 or 7 minutes, when we looked up, we were a quarter mile out from shore. When he jumped in the water was so cold, it must have shocked him immediately. He didn't have a chance to explain it to me, but what he said was, "Something is wrong." And he started to jump back into the raft immediately. And at that point, the raft lifted, and the wind got underneath the raft, and the wind took it away. I was having conversations with God because I didn't want to die in front of my sister's house, and I didn't want him and I to die that day. I remember looking around, and I couldn't see a jet ski, a boat, a person. There were people all the way in the sand, but nobody that was near us. And so when I had stopped fighting and realized that I was going to die, and I screamed, "Will someone please help us?" When he got to me, he grabbed me and he said, "Where is your friend?" And I said, "He's there." And when I turned around, my boyfriend at the time, someone I loved, who was very dear to me, who had so much life to give and had such a beautiful soul, had submerged.
So the thing about panic is it's an emotional and irrational response to a situation or a circumstance, whether you're in the water or out of the water. But if you panic when you're in the water, you're going to start making some really bad choices.
Panic is really what kills people in most situations. My name is Bob Pratt.
My name is Faith Hoekstra.
My name is Jamie Recklift. I'm a communication director at the University of Michigan and a rip current survivor.
How you doing? My name's Dave Benjamin, South End surfer since 2008, 2009 or so. For food and shelter, I'm a residential painter, and I'm also a co-founder and executive director of the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project.
In my professional life, I was a paramedic firefighter with the city of East Lansing in Michigan. I retired from there as the fire marshal for the city. Now I work for the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project.
When I was about 24, I took a surf lifeguarding class. I lifeguarded in the UK and then in a couple other countries. But I'm from Michigan. I came back to Michigan and I wanted to still be involved with surf environment lifeguarding.
What we do with the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project is we track the drownings in the Great Lakes. We teach Great Lakes water safety. We work with family and friends of drowning victims to advocate water safety, and then we also do open water surf lifeguard training.
I didn't learn how to swim until I was in college, but I always loved the water. I always loved Lake Michigan. I loved being out in the water. After I learned how to swim in college, I became a lifeguard. Then I worked my job as a paramedic firefighter and was always intrigued by water safety.
It's important to have lifeguards on public beaches because they are a person with their eyes on the water who can understand and read currents and has the skills to navigate in and out of them and the skills to rescue anyone who gets in over their head.
The lifeguards are first responders just like a police officer, firefighter, paramedic.
I really got interested in drowning prevention when I took my son Jake surfing, and as we pulled up to Grand Haven State Park, there was a Coast Guard helicopter flying overhead and some Coast Guard boats out in the water doing a search pattern. And looking down at the beach, there was a whole clutch of family down on the beach. And I learned later that it was from Andy Fox, a local Grand Haven kid who had drowned the night before, and they were still looking for his body. And the whole way home, I just thought about that could be my son.
When I had my drowning accident, bad wipeout, got the wind knocked out of me, got held under for 2 waves, in 30-degree water. The thing is with drowning is if somebody gets in trouble, if they're doing the signs of drowning, actively drowning, it's less than 60 seconds until final submersion. So it's very important to have somebody in the water who's got experience with the water conditions, and surfers fit that role identically. Surfers have this unique perspective where they're in the physical shape to handle the waves. They have a flotation device. They dress for the water temperature wearing a wetsuit, which is also buoyancy, and they know how to use the currents. So the structural currents along the piers or rip currents in the open water. We try to use those currents as best as we can for our advantage so that we're not battling the waves. So we're very proactive with every presentation that we do is, advocating water safety and actually advocating the need for lifeguards.
Drowning is a complex problem, and it needs a complex solution.
It's really important that somebody takes the initiative to train beach lifeguards in this area, because beaches on the Great Lakes have surf and all these conditions that are commonly found in the ocean. They're a little bit different because we don't have tides, but most of the lifeguards here only have a training level to pool or open water like flat water.
One of the main reasons that we hear from community leaders that they don't invest in water safety is because they're afraid they'll be liable. But we have statements from attorneys general around the Great Lakes that you don't have to worry about that. There's no liability for that.
As a firefighter paramedic, one of the things that we learned early on is how to deal with panic, how to deal with stressful situations. And having a plan, even a basic plan, allows you to focus on that plan rather than focusing on the panic. And if you don't have something just as simple as stop, drop, and roll, or flip, float, and follow to latch onto, you're much more likely to panic.
It'd be a combination of floating, and swimming, treading water, follow the safest path out of the water. You've been able to figure it out in a life and death situation.
The reason that we needed to develop stop, drop, and roll is that children would panic when their clothing caught on fire and they'd run away. If your clothes catch on fire, the worst thing you can do is to run.
The more people are educated about the many aspects of water safety, drowning numbers will go down.
Especially starting with the young kids. If we could start in elementary school and just teach them the real basics of water safety.
What we advocate is flip, float, and follow.
I had that doggy paddle, tired swimmer, my small face and the waves covering.
It's like the stop, drop, and roll of water safety.
If I had known about structural currents and been more educated in them, especially how they're formed, how to get out of one, I absolutely am positive that my son would still be here because I taught him everything I know.
If we look at schools today, there's fire drills, tornado drills, school shooter drills, lockdown drills along with the school shooter drills. There's even earthquake drills in some schools in Illinois and Indiana.
Drowning will kill more people than fire, lightning, tornadoes, school shooters, and earthquakes combined.
Not that I'm opposed to earthquake drills, but there's very little water safety education. For some of you, this might be the first time you're getting water safety education.
I was just sick to my stomach hearing about how preventable this life-changing event could have been. And in the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project, they're trying to go to all the schools to have it like stop, drop, and roll. Call 911. These are important things that save lives.
We want kids to learn how to flip, float, and follow. It's a life-saving strategy like stop, drop, and roll. And what it does is it gives the kids something to focus on if they're struggling in the water. Flip over onto their back so they can breathe when they want to. Float to calm themselves down. Float to conserve their energy. And then follow a safe course back to safety. And if we can just control that panic and get people to calm down, they're halfway to being saved.
One of the other things I learned is that there's a lot of pain with drowning, and a lot of pain for the surviving families and for the people affected. It can create a lot of anger. It can create a lot of lack of communication.
Dave and Bob, they just enlightened us about so many aspects of water safety.
When Matt drowned, we did not know anybody else that had experienced a drowning in their family. We didn't know anything about rip currents. And when we met Dave and Bob, we learned so much about rip currents and about all the other people that have drowned in Lake Michigan and the other Great Lakes.
It's kind of grown. It was just a community project after a drowning accident. I was going to do one water safety class, and next thing you know, now it's been 6 years and we've done almost 320 presentations and trainings. So it's been kind of grown, taking a life of its own, kind of taken over.
I will continue to support this organization with any way possible that I can, because I dream for them, and I dream a big dream, just like they do, a dream that water safety is common language on TV, it's common language in schools and with children.
So right after Matt had passed, my neighbor and friend, Ruth Richardson, she was at our house, and we were talking about how we were going to do something to promote water safety, because we didn't want this to happen to anyone else's child. And so she was there with us, and we talked about, starting to do something to spread the word about water safety. We understood that rip currents are very dangerous, but that if you have a certain technique, that you can survive it. And we learned that drowning is 100% preventable.